Have you ever wondered how some companies manage to release new software features multiple times a day? Well, it's not magic. It's a philosophy called pipelines as code. The idea is to stop clicking around in user interfaces and start committing, treating the pipelines that build and release your software just like you treat your application code. So today we're going to break down exactly how that works. Okay, so let's start with a really fundamental question, one that every single development team has to answer. When you set up your automation, how do you do it? Are you going to use a visual tool, dragging and dropping boxes, or are you going to write a file that defines the whole process in code? Believe me, your answer to that question has massive implications for your team's speed, its agility, and honestly, your ability to sleep at night. And this really illustrates the huge difference between the two approaches. The old way, the visual designer, it's kind of like a chef cooking from memory. It might work, and the result might be great, but how do you track what changed from the last time you made the dish? How do you reliably share that recipe? It's tricky, right? Now, the new way, using YAML code, well, that's like having the recipe written down step by step and stored safely in Git. It's versioned, so every single change is tracked. It's auditable, so you have a crystal clear history. And it's reusable. You can just copy it or branch it, just like any other piece of code. So what exactly is pipelines as code? Honestly, the core idea is surprisingly simple. You just defined every single step of your build, your testing, and your deployment process in a text file. In this case, a YAML file. And here's the most critical part. That file lives right there inside your source code repository. This is so important because it means your pipeline is always in sync with the application it's responsible for. Now, theory is one thing, but let's make this real. We're going to walk through a practical example from the source material. We'll use a project called eShop on Web, and we'll see exactly what foundational setup is needed to get one of these pipelines up and running. Before we write even a single line of pipeline code, we've got to get our house in order. There are basically three key things you need in place. First, you need a project in Azure DevOps to act as a home base for everything. Second, you got to get your application source code in there. And third, you need to set up the actual cloud infrastructure in Azure where your app is eventually going to run. And here's the crucial point. It all starts with your source code. By importing our code into Azure repos, what we're really doing is creating a single source of truth. From this moment on, every change to both the application and the pipeline is going to be tracked and managed in one single place. They live together and they evolve together. All right, our stage is set. We've got our project, we've got our code, we've got our cloud resources. Now we can get to the fun part, defining the pipeline. We're going to start with the first major piece, which is the build stage. This is the absolute heart of continuous integration, or CI, where we turn all that raw source code into a clean, testable package. You remember those painful merge days, right? Where everyone on the team tries to integrate their code at the very last minute and it just leads to chaos and bugs? Well, continuous integration is the cure for that. The whole idea is that by automatically building and testing the code every single time a developer merges a change, the team finds and fixes bugs way faster, and it ensures that the main codebase is always stable. So, in our YAML file for the eShop on Web project, the build stage is broken down into 4 logical steps. First, we restore all the project dependencies it needs. Then, we compile the solution. Next, we run all the automated unit tests to make sure everything still works. And finally, if all of that passes, we package the output into a single deployable file. We call that an artifact. Now, let's take a look at how this actually translates into that YAML code. The thing that's so cool about this is just how readable it is. The stage is clearly labeled build, and inside it, we have tasks for restore, build, and test. This is what's known as a declarative approach. We're just describing what we want to happen, not writing a complex script for how to do it. And that makes the pipeline incredibly easy for anyone to understand. So a successful build is great. We have our shiny new artifact, but it's not really useful just sitting there on a build server. The next logical step is to actually get it out into the world. This is the handoff, passing the baton from CI to what we call continuous delivery, or CD. Continuous delivery basically just extends CI by automating the release process. Once our code is built and has passed all the tests, the CD part of the pipeline automatically pushes that artifact to a target environment. This ensures you always have a deployment-ready artifact available. Now, the final decision to push to production could still be a manual button press. That's a bit different from continuous deployment, where every past build goes live automatically. And this is where the beauty of the as-code approach really shines. To add our deployment logic, we don't go to some different screen or different tool. Nope. We just open up the exact same YAML file and add a new stage called deploy right below our build stage. It's all there in one unified file. So clean. This new deploy stage really has two primary jobs. First, it downloads the artifact that was created and published by our build stage. And second, it uses a task to push that package directly out to our Azure web app, which makes the new version go live. Okay, this all sounds pretty amazing. A fully automated pipeline from the moment a developer commits code all the way to deployment. But this brings up a really important real-world question about control. Is that always what you want? I mean, isn't that a little risky, especially when we're talking about a critical production environment? How can we introduce a manual checkpoint, a final human go-ahead before a release happens, without having to abandon our nice YAML pipeline? Well, the answer is a really powerful Azure DevOps feature called environments. An environment basically represents a deployment target, like staging or production, and it lets us configure checks and guardrails on that target. The most common one is a manual approval gate, but it can also be things like requiring security scans to pass before deployment can proceed. And here's the magic. It's just one line of code. By adding environment approvals into our deploy job, we're literally telling the pipeline, pause right here, and do not go any further until a designated person comes in and clicks approve. It's control, defined as code, and it's seamlessly integrated right into our process. So let's just step back and recap the really powerful benefits we get when we finally stop clicking and start committing our entire CI/CD process as code. By treating your pipeline as just another file in your repository, it basically inherits all the best practices we already use for software development. It's version controlled, so you can roll back changes. It's auditable, giving you that clear history. You can branch it to safely test new pipeline features. And you get this single, unified definition for both CI and CD that lives and breathes right alongside your application. And all of this leaves us with a final thought. We've just turned our delivery pipeline into code, but that's really just one piece of a much larger movement. So as you go back to your own projects, ask yourself this. If your pipeline can be code, what else in your infrastructure could be? The possibilities are pretty much endless, and the benefits, well, they're huge.
Hey everyone, in this section of lab, we'll go through configure pipeline as code with YAML. So let's click on that one. Mm. I'll share this Microsoft Learning GitHub link so that you can follow this lab when you do into your own environment. And for this lab, what we are going to do, actually mainly configuring CI/CD pipeline mm, as code with YAML in Azure DevOps. So let's go to the lab. Very first thing we need for that lab is to connect into Azure DevOps portal. Now open this project, click on this project. So we're going to set up service connection. So for that here, first here what you need to go to this project settings button here, down button. And after that, service connection under pipelines. Click on create service connection. Select the like service connection type. So in this case, we are going to go with Azure Resource Manager. Select that one and click on next. Select the identity type, credential, subscription. Select the resource group, the service connection name. And down below, make sure that grant access permission to all pipelines is deselected. And click on save. So we have completed the necessary prerequisites steps to continue with this labs. So now we are going to configure pipelines as code with YAML. First thing you need to import the required repository. So for that, let's go to that under repository section and click on files. And then down below here is the import repository. Click on import. And here paste the repository URL and then click on import. So input is successful and you can see all those files and folder structures. These folders contains different level of required biceps, structure, GitHub workflow, .NET website, all the required components. So now go to this branches option to make that main branch as a default branch. So here is the main branch. Go to ellipse options and set that as a default branch. So now we're going to create Azure resources. Therefore, open a new tab and connect to the Azure portal. And then go to Cloud Shell here. You see, for Cloud Shell, two options there, Bash and PowerShell. So in this case, we are going with Bash. And then no storage account, but select the subscription and click Apply. So we are passing the variables location Australia East and passing the resource group. And after that, creating a Windows App Service Plan. That app service plan has been created. Now create a web app with a unique name. And put a note of this one web app name because we need this one in later stage. Press enter. So this is a message we can ignore for now. that has been completed. Now close the Azure Cloud Shell and let's go back to our DevOps URL like web page. So from here, let's go to the pipelines. So now we're going to configure CI/CD pipelines as code with YAML. So click here that create pipeline. And what is your code in our case? That is Azure repository or Azure repos git. Select that one. And here select a repository. Select that is shopweb dash number one. And here configure your pipeline. In this case, this is existing Azure pipeline YAML file. So select that option. And when it's coming that branch, you can see that that is main. And we have to select the path. So we're going to select the path is .ado. Shop on web, this one dash ai.yaml. And then click on continue. Now here where you see that review the pipeline, just to go through with all the steps. So it's a building, and if you see here, the task is going restore, then build, and then test. And after that, publish web projects. Now select this run option to start the build pipeline. Now you can see that it's not started yet, but it's progressing. You can see from also job. So you can select into new tab, open that into new tab to see the build process. So I'll be back when that build process is completed. So here you see all the task level. You can, like from here, you can also check each task if there is any warning or any errors also. So build pipeline is completed. Now add continuous delivery to the YAML definition. So for that, let's go back to pipeline run page. And here you see that ellipsis symbol in the upper right hand corner. So select that one and you see that edit pipeline, select that option and go to line 56. Press enter to add a new, like a new empty line. And here, copy this task. So here we have defined the deploy stage. Now check for Azure App Service Deploy. Settings, stages deploy. Once we add this content to define the release stage. the cursor on the new line at the end of the YAML. So set the cursor into new line and search task. Yeah, look for Azure App Service Deploy. So here we can see that Azure App Service Deploy pen. Select that one. And here, connection type is Azure Resource Manager. Azure subscription, select the Azure subscription. And after that, click on Authorize. Now it's coming app service type, web app, Windows, and then it's the app service name. I have to check that that's the name we have used. The backup, Isham Web 5971 So that's the one that we have deployed before. Then package or folder, added this value Artifactory. Now here application and configuration settings. In the app settings, we're going to add this value. Now click on add button. So you can see that section is added here. Now validate that one. So click on validate. So it's getting unexpected value is trace. Line 57. Okay, let me solve that issue. So after that, validate the data. So pipeline is valid. You can cancel. So let's save that. Click save to commit these changes that we have done. Now navigate to the pipelines. And I can see this pipeline here. And click this run pipeline. So click run. Now here you can see that actually two defined stages. One is build.NET Core solution, and second one is deployed to Azure Web App. Let's wait for the pipeline to complete the build stage successfully. So you can see that job preparation parameters, two artifacts produced, 100% test passed. Go back. Build job first one completed. Second one is waiting for the permission. So select this one, or you can see go back. You can see top level. You can also go from here. Also view. So here you can also see that view option. So select view, and here you need to be permit. So select that permit and select that check the message and select permit and wait for deploy stage to complete successfully. So now it's progressing this one. So when it's progressing, let's go to the portal and go to resource group. And this app service, select that one. So build completed. And go back, we can see that this build has been completed. But here it's still showing something is going on. So maybe still finishing. Deploy to an Azure Web App still running. Here it's showing that one. So now you can see the job completed. So now let's go to web app and click on browse. So here we can see that deployed sites loads as expected, and it's showing that shop on web and e-commerce website. So we have completed these sections. Now we are going to configure environment settings for approval. So for that, let's go back to DevOps portal. And here we see that under pipelines, there is the environments. Select that environments. Then click on new environment or create environment. Give a environment a name. So we are giving approvals. And under resource, select none. And then click on create. So it's giving environment approvals is already exist in the current project. New environment. I'm just following the labs. So yeah, actually you can see that and one environment is already there approvals. Okay. So never deployed. Approvals and checks. And there add your first check section. Select approvals. And here select the account. So approval fields. And then we are not going to pass anything here. Advanced, taking all the default value. Now click on create. And after that, navigate to the repository browser and here .audio folder. Select that eShop web ci.yml file and click edit button. And then go to line 60. So here under jot deploy, press enter to add a new empty line and add value here. Environments equal to approvals. Since environment is deployment stage, setting change that job deploy to deployment to deploy. So we have also added a new empty line and paste this snap strategy run once and deploy. Now click on commit. Click commit. It's committed, but it's giving me message that create a pull request. I'm on main branch. So let me go to pipeline. Pipeline. Select this pipeline and click on run pipeline. Trigger a new run. 15 and column 3. Run once. So it's giving me some message. So create a pull request. Mhm. Sometimes mouse is a little bit tricky. Pipeline. Go to pipeline. This is my pipeline. Run pipeline. Version by branch and tag. This is my main branch. Could be that one. So we can see that build stage is complete as before. Now for the second section, for the deploy stage, this time we can see that it's waiting. So one check is in progress. So permission needed, select that one. You can also see that pipeline needs permission to access. So you can click view, give the permission, again click on permit. And then here it's getting like deploy to an Azure web app approvals, environment approvals, waiting for approval. So either two options, reject and approve. So here we are selecting approve. So normal case you can validate and then you can approve or reject. So click on approve. So that allows the deploy stage to proceed uh, uh, for the deploying Azure web app. I can soon check past and its deploy is in progress. And we can see that one also here stages. So let's wait, come back when this build complete. So now we can see the deployment finish. So go back to the job status and we can see both jobs completed. Now let's go back to the website to see that still working and fine. So refresh this page. And this website is running fine. So we have successfully completed our lab. It's always recommended or good practice if you don't use or no need this lab, then always better to delete the resource group. So if you have any question, please put into comment sections. Otherwise, see you into next lab.